Hi everybody, this is Bo Sanders, and today I wanted to encourage you or challenge you to think about sacraments in a way that is more congruent, I believe, with the 21st century, because it takes into account the way that the world works and the way that words work. So I'd like you to imagine, what if baptism is a metaphor, or communion is a parable, or the way that weddings are full of symbols and signs is not just a limitation for poetic use and beauty, but that like putting on a ring is actually a performative or an embodied or enacted use of the symbols that fill up a wedding ceremony. So I want to be clear about the difference between a sign and a symbol. The clearest distinction that I think is helpful for us is that a sign is a signifier that points to a greater reality or a reality beyond itself. My favorite example of this is if you're driving in the foothills and you see a yellow sign with a black squiggly arrow, you know that it means curves ahead. We inherently know how to translate or interpret signs. You would never stop the car, get out, tear off the road sign, put it on your lap and say, now turn left here and turn right here. We know the difference between signs, maps, and the road itself. And yet when it comes to religious ceremonies, sometimes we're not careful to make that same distinction between signs and symbols and the reality that they point to. So a sign is a signifier that points to a reality beyond itself or greater than itself. A symbol, though, is a little different. It's a sign that participates in some level in the reality that it points to. A symbol is a sign that points, not only points to, but participates in the reality that it points to. So in this way, sacraments, whether it's the communion table or baptism or wedding ceremonies, sacraments, things that are sacred, are enacted symbols, embodied signifiers, or performed parables. It's an interesting way to think about it because instead of reducing it down to what's going on in some other realm or imagining how we are importing an ancient understanding, and all of that may be true, but it's insufficient for what is needed in the 21st century. So when we come to the communion table, we say really amazing things like, every time you do this, remember me. But here's the thing, as we gather around the table as the members of Christ's body, we actually remember. It's a performative parable. We are embodying it. We are enacting it. In the same way, when we say, this is the bread, right? The body of Christ, the sign of the bread that points to a greater reality is actually becoming a symbol in our participation that allows us to enter into and participate in what the sign is pointing to. So it's not magic, it's not superstition, it's not metaphysics. It's actually understanding that what is happening there is special by our intention. In the wedding ceremony, when we say that the two are now one, those aren't just nice words. By standing up and having that ceremony being witnessed to, right, where there's witnesses, something changes that day. So when we put on the ring, it's a symbol that we participate in, and we perform it, we enact it, we embody what that represents. This is more than a sign. The symbol lets us participate in the reality that is being signified. It's really amazing, poetic, big stuff. So I think where the catch, where the problem is that we have had a misunderstanding of what parables are. So often I have heard parables described as earthly stories with heavenly meanings. But actually, parables are earthy stories with heavy meanings. Get that from Ched Myers. Parables are earthy stories with heavy meanings. Misunderstanding parables has meant that the church has lost, in some sense, its prophetic imagination. Because the prophetic ministry of the church is not only to imagine that the world can be a different way, but to image to the world what it means to be that way. The prophetic ministry of the church is not just to imagine that the world can be a different way, but to image to the world what it is to be that way. We do this in the breaking of bread, in the meeting around tables, in the waters of baptism, in community, born in spirit and water. We do this in wedding ceremonies. We do this in so many ways. So, I hope that this is a helpful way to think about this and understand it. I hope that it points you towards a way that is more congruent with the 21st century, the way we understand the world to work and the way we understand words to work. I have no interest in fighting the battles of the past or sticking up for a way of understanding the cosmos or the universe, a realm beyond that is no longer justifiable. I really want to say what is happening when we are together. What's the power of enacting or performing or embodying these things we say we believe? How might that help us imagine the world being a different way and image to the world being that way? I'd love to hear your feedback. If this is helpful, if you have questions or concerns, let me know.